Hello, and welcome to the Soul Shaking Love podcast. This podcast is dedicated to bringing you the world's expert teachers and how to build a mind, body, and spirit connection, both with yourself and with your true love. I'm Valerie Green from CoachValerieGreen.com. And today I'm really excited to have Amber Lavin on the show. Hello, Amber.
Hi,
It's so
thank you
nice
for
to
having me.
Yeah, and we were chatting a lot before that. We have a lot in common. Amber is a dating and relationship coach. And this interview, she's really going to illuminate her specialty, which is how to stop chasing in dating, because it's just so many women that I talk to and men, but, with anxious attachment or insecure attachment, really have this experience that when you start dating someone, there's this amazing connection, and then it's just not happening as quickly as you want. And so then you feel like you have to be the chaser, you have to be the pursuer, and you're not getting a lot back. And it's so frustrating. So that's really what Amber specializes in, working with people to start feeling their intuition and start feeling for the signs that the person is actually emotionally available, and how to get out of our head and find embody ways to attract the love that you really deserve. So that's the topic today. Hi, Amber.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just so prevalent nowadays. So I will, like I just almost every time I talk to one of my single clients or friends, they talk about this dynamic of like, he was coming towards me and now he's pulling away, and what do I do? And everything I'm trying isn't working, right? I mean, it's just very, very common.
Yeah, and I know we're going to be diving deeper into attachment wounds, but the avoidant person and the anxious, they're like magnets to each other. And this push-pull dynamic is kind of a core part of relationships in general. It's not like a bad thing, that push-pull. It's kind of a part of intimacy. But when people have attachment wounds, it's much more intense, and we're all just trying to heal. So we're going towards that healing that wound, and we're not aware that the person who created the wound might not be a safe person. So we're going towards someone who's unavailable. And that's not actually what's going to be the most helpful. Doing that internal work, starting with ourselves, becoming more attuned to our body and what safety feels like in our bodies is actually what can bring us closer to the type of partner that everyone would like.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I love how you just said that. Because I completely agree that we tend to get attracted to what feels familiar. Unfortunately, it's like that feeling that you have when you're like, oh, I feel like I've known this person my whole life, right?
Uh-huh.
Unfortunately, what that means is it's gonna feel after the honeymoon phase wears off, it's going to feel amazing in the beginning, but after the honeymoon phase wears off, right, it's going to feel what familiar means is how love felt growing up, right?
Hmm.
I mean, do you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what we're trying to heal. And so the nervous system is really intelligent, and it's childlike, really. Especially when you're on this journey of trying to heal it, it's still very childlike. And so you kind of have to bring in your adult self to make conscious decisions outside of that.
Hmm. Right. Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. That, and I think what you mean by childlike, is it's kind of endearing the way I look at it, right? Like the nervous system is like, the part of the autonomic nervous system. So it's like just reactive and doesn't think rationally and is very emotional, and it's spontaneous, right? And is that kind of what you mean by childlike?
Yeah. I just had a session this morning where we were talking about um, sometimes when I'm doing this work with clients, they feel like it's unromantic or that, we should just kind of meet this person and go with the flow and see what happens. And sure, there might be some people that were built like that, but a lot of people have wounds around relationships. And if you do, yeah, it's very instant gratification. Like you just want what you want whenever you want it. And I used this analogy this morning with because I have a 5-year-old and I walked into the kitchen and he had like a bowl of chocolate fudge that and that's how our nervous systems are. It just wants to feel better, and so we're seeking out things that feel better. And as you grow in your own understanding of your nervous system and what it's telling you, you can actually begin to attune to yourself and see what is more healing and what is similar to a parent. This is actually what's going to provide you the most sustenance.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and I agree. And you said something that I also agree with is that a lot of people think that um if you're just kind of like going with the flow and doing what feels good, and then you, as you called it, bring your adult self in to kind of ask yourself, well, is this person really right for me? That can kind of be a buzzkill. Is,
Yeah.
sort of like what I heard, the sentiment that I heard you say. And so how can we do that in a way that's streamlined, that's more harmonious?
Yeah, so that's a lot of the work that I do with clients is helping them get really clear about who they are looking for in a partner. And when you think about it historically, this idea of romantic love is very new. Before, our families used to be involved, and they might help us align with values. And there was messed up things with that for sure. But now a lot of what we do is base our experience off movies and TV, and that we're supposed to have that initial really intense spark and that's our soulmate. And that is just so far from the truth. And sometimes it works out and it's a great person and you hit the lottery and you did, it all works out. But sometimes it doesn't, and especially for people who have an attachment wound, it's tends to be going after people who are not a good fit or don't align with you value wise, who are emotionally unavailable. And the way that you streamline that is through working potentially with someone or with yourself to understand the patterns, to understand the triggers, to identify the red flags, all the things that you kind of hear, randomly on the internet, probably as people, your listeners are looking stuff up, but making it more concise and getting really clear about what you want in your life and what kind of partner you want.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah. So, like, kind of doing, I imagine then when you work with people, you do kind of like a relationship history to see what the patterns are. And then, based on what the unhelpful patterns were from the past, you then make a list of, because I think most people who come to us have a list of qualities that they want on a superficial level, like age,
Mhm.
income level, maturity, stability, looks, education, career, lifestyle. Those are, of course, important. And what I hear you talking about are also values, um, and um, desires for healing and um, relational skills like emotional availability. And those are things that need to be on the list, and we need to know how to vet for them. So I guess the question is like, how do you recommend clients do that without it sounding like an interrogation?
I get that question often from clients of I don't want to be interviewing someone and I think it's okay to want to know if someone is emotionally available. I think it's such an important thing. And you can sense it really as you learn and grow and understand what emotional availability looks like. And a key part of this really is to identifying whether you're emotionally available yourself. And so understanding, okay, what that looks like for you. And then you can sense that in another person. Are they looking away? Are they disconnected? Are they not really answering questions fully? Are they not talking about anything that has depth? Then that's probably someone who, and not everyone's perfect on the first date. Everybody's super nervous, but your body is going to give you a lot of information too. So, learning how to be in tune with your body, learning how to understand the signals that your body's giving you is going to be incredibly helpful on that first date. And I also do this during the support group that I offer with women is we go through this exact process of how to date with embodiment. And I give very specific techniques for how to move through this in a way that feels supportive. Because if it's left up to us, we will continue to choose what feels good and familiar,
Mhm.
as you
Of
said.
course. Yeah. I mean, because we just want to have a good time and get out of our heads and have fun. That's the
Yeah.
reason why we're meeting someone to begin with, is we wanted to feel good. And obviously we want to attract someone to build a life with, right? Like we probably wouldn't be listening to this podcast if we weren't. But we wanted to feel good, and yes, it's just so easy to fall into automatic patterns. And so having a support group so of course, we can talk more about your support group at the end, um, to really do the work of getting into the body, asking yourself these deep embodied questions, and just paying attention to your feelings, is not necessarily natural,
Uh-huh.
especially if our feelings are unpleasant. We tend to avoid them, but I like to say that the law of attraction isn't just um, focusing on what you want. A lot of people think the law of attraction is focusing on what we want and suppressing what we don't want, and that's actually avoidance.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're going to attract other people who suppress their unpleasant feelings. It's like the law of attraction is you attract who you're being. If who you're being is compassionate towards your own feelings, you're going to attract somebody who's compassionate towards your feelings too. It's like I'm being compassion, I'm being love, right? So, like, that's what I hear you saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of the core of this work, and I think you would agree with this, is becoming the person that you want to be with. And so if
Hmm.
you're looking for someone with a high emotional intelligence, who emotionally available, who can have hard conversations, who can self-regulate, and asking yourself, can I do those things? And what degree can I do those things? And doing that work to up that number, whatever that number is, and it's more we attract whatever we're however we feel and the thought patterns that we have. That's what we're going to attract. And so the more you can tap into becoming that person, the more likely is that you'll attract someone who's similar.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I know that's easier said than done, but I completely agree.
Yeah.
So then how can somebody just begin that journey of tuning into their body and their feelings when they're dating? Versus like, because it's so hard when you're on a date and you're feeling an unpleasant feeling to know what to do with it, right? You don't just like blurt it out, especially not on a first date. It's about observing and um, gathering information and then
Yes.
maybe asking a question about it. But how do you have any small practices that you recommend for how people can start just paying attention to their body when they're on a date?
Yeah, it really starts way before the date. And I call it creating rituals and ceremonies in dating. And so, really slowing down before you even go on the date, putting practices in place that self regulate, self soothe, so that you are not in a heightened state of arousal during that date. It's completely normal to be flooded with oxytocin and dopamine and feel anxiety during a date. That is so normal, but you don't want it to be in the driver's seat. You want to
Yes.
be in a regulated state. So, starting even before you walk in the door, of putting practices in place to know how to self soothe before you're on that date is going to greatly benefit. But if that's brand new, you've never heard that before, when you're sitting there, you are allowed to take deep breaths, say kind things to yourself, whatever resonates with you. But those are some recommendations that I say. Also, you're allowed to take a minute and get up, go to the bathroom. If you start to feel really overwhelmed, just pause. Hey, I gotta go to the bathroom, go into the bathroom, take some deep breaths, remind yourself that you're safe. There's not a bear right there. It's just like some person who probably very nervous too. And you could do that multiple times. You could even excuse yourself. If you really start to feel like you're getting outside of your window of tolerance, you could be like, you know what, I got something that I need to do. It's all of this is an experimentation and it's practice. And I like to say that to the clients that I'm working with. This is really a practice and you just get better and better at it as you do it and looking at it as an exploration and putting these skills into place. This is a skill set that can be taught.
Yes, yes, exactly. Um, and um, and that it takes time to learn new skills, up to 30 days of practicing every day to pay attention to our feelings and needs. I mean, for me, still, if I'm feeling a really deep emotion, I usually, even if it's with another person, I usually have to close my eyes in order to put it into words. And
Mm,
I remember that was a really good screening process for people that I was dating because when now I'm happily married, as I know you are too. But when I was you know, dating to meet my husband, I remember on dates, and I did this with him, but I remember I did this on all the, dates that I went on when I was dating, was, I would ask deep questions and, like I have like a list of questions that I recommend that people ask, on a first date, like, what are your beliefs about love, or like, stuff like that, not necessarily what do you want with me, right? You don't know that yet, but um and so then of course you have to answer your own question. So if he would ask me a deep question back, I would say like, I love that question. I need to take a minute and close my eyes to feel the answer.
mhm,
Um, and, I would do that and he would notice me doing that. And if anybody made fun of me for doing that or joked around in a way that didn't seem kind about me doing that, then they weren't available.
mm-mm.
And the people that were like, oh, please. And then when I opened my eyes and shared, I could tell that those people were present and appreciative that I was giving a deeper answer. Those people were more, stayed in the game. They were more like, oh, okay, I'll keep dating this person.
Yeah, that's such a good point because when people are dating, you think that you're supposed to be like this most polished, again, coming back to TV and movies, like this most polished versions of ourselves and giving yourself permission to regulate is that's what you want. That's going to sustain a relationship. And both people are going to be anxious. And I even say, yeah, naming, gosh, I feel really nervous. Or the more transparent you can be, and the more, as much as it feels safe, the more vulnerable you can be, the more you're going to gain information of whether or not that person can be attuned. Of course, the caveat is, within a realm of window of tolerance again, like you're just kind of feeling a little nervous and this is what you do to help yourself. So I love that analogy because I think it's so perfect to be able to figure out whether or not someone can attune to you.
Hmm. Right. It's just kind of like if you're attuning to yourself and doing the things you need to do to attune to yourself, notice how the other person is responding to that. Are they like really appreciative that you're doing that and giving you the space to do that, or do they seem judgmental? In which case, they don't know how to do that themselves.
Yeah.
So it's these little things, right, that you're talking about paying attention to. Um, so Yeah, I'd like to just take a step back and talk about how does being out of touch with our bodies and our feelings, how does that keep us stuck and not noticing and getting attached to people that aren't right for us? And if we notice that we are getting attached to someone who we know isn't right for us, how do we get back into our body and our feelings and deal with that?
Yeah, so say that a question again.
Yeah, sorry, it's
No,
two
it's okay.
pieces, but
Yeah.
like um let's say we don't do what we're talking about, right? Like because what we're talking about is paying attention to our body and only proceeding with people who can show us experientially that they're emotionally available and they can respond well to us sharing feelings. And they can have deeper conversations and answer deeper questions. And, that then we can start talking about our values, in conversation, not as a um, interrogation, but, I really value, like, I remember when my husband and I were first dating too, a question we asked each other is, what makes you sad? And, how do you want to be responded to when you're sad? And we talked about that, and we talked about our purposes and what we want to contribute to the world and all that. And it was just in this embodied flow. And that's what we're talking about is like how to really be in our body and it goes well, right? So the next question from that I'm asking is like, why is it that when you don't do that, when you do stay in your head, or if you stay in your body and just go with the flow and do what feels good, why does that lead to getting stuck in unfulfilling relationships?
Yeah, so I'll start with the first part first, or the second part first. So I kind of want to say too that most people don't know that they're disconnected. It's usually a breaking moment or a breakdown where I see clients or they go see a therapist or something and they're like, I don't know what's wrong with my life. Nothing feels good, or something like that. And so it's a misalignment because when we're disconnected with our bodies, we're with who we are, essentially, we're not listening to what we want or what we need. And so we're not able to articulate that to anyone else. And so whenever people are disconnected from who they are and what they want, they're kind of just bumping along and then they meet someone who likes them back and they're like, oh, this is it. They're attractive. Like this is what makes sense. And so then yeah, they end up in situations where they're like, why does this keep happening? I want to have this fairy tale that I saw, on Friends or something. Um, and so learning how to drop in and understand what that true really it starts with your connection with yourself. That's where this all begins is connecting with yourself and what you want, what you desire, and that journey in the beginning can feel like going through mud when you've never tapped into your feelings. It feels like um, it's like learning a new language. I mean, it feels very, very foreign when you start doing this experience of who am I? What do I want? And I will say that working with clients with attachment wounds, the core of what I found is most of the time they struggle with this core idea of I don't get what I want.
Mm,
And
yeah.
then that's projected out um, in the world of then you don't get what you want.
Right. Yeah, I know. Do you want to share more about that, about how those beliefs become self-fulfilling prophecies?
Yeah. So, from what I've seen, having these conversations with clients where it almost always comes about some point of that there's this desire, this urge, this inner urge for certain things. And that could be as simple as, going to a coffee shop with friends, but you wanted to go to a restaurant and you didn't state that need. And then your friends went to the coffee shop, and then there's this experience of it becomes a story. Whenever we're young, we create stories about what relationships are and what they represent to us. And then we're just trying to play that out every day. And so that story of, because the part is that we are not speaking it out loud. And that seems so simplistic, to not understand what you want. Most people know what they want. If you ask someone, they know, I want this type of guy, but they don't seek it out or speak it out because there's this belief somewhere along the line that I don't get what I want. And then we just replay that belief out every single day whenever we go to the grocery store, when we are with friends, and we're not super aware that that's what's happening over and over again.
Right. Exactly. So then if we do meet somebody that seems to be the way we want, a lot of times we shy up, because we don't feel like we deserve it, or we'll sabotage it and we don't know why. And it's because of the story, and stories are important for survival, right? If we didn't, like, we make up those stories because otherwise it would feel too painful or scary as a kid, right? So it's about identifying those stories and dismantling them, and right.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because that comes up really often, in that women are like, you know, they met someone who does check all the boxes, but I'm not as attracted to him as I am the unavailable person.
Mhm.
And I usually challenge that. Attraction and chemistry is incredibly important. But if your nervous system is hardwired for a heightened state of arousal
Yeah.
when someone's unavailable, I would not call that chemistry.
Yep.
Um, and so exploring what it's like to be with someone safe, it might be a slower burn
Yeah.
a little bit, but it's probably going to be a much more intense attraction over time. But that initial meeting might be like, because again, it's unfamiliar. You're like, oh, I don't know if I like this. He texted me back.
Right. No, I know. And it's a really good point, because a lot of times I even noticed this with my husband,
Mhm.
because I identify as having disorganized or ambivalent attachment. And so there's sometimes still where he'll be really loving and I can't take it in. And it's because my nervous system thinks it's contrived. The way he's acting, it feels like a Hallmark card, the way he's saying it,
Mhm. Yeah.
and it doesn't feel real. And it's like I identified that it's because of my attachment wounding that I feel it that way. So if in the moment I'm present enough to say that, like, it feels contrived because of my own programming. I know it's not what you're doing. I know intellectually you're giving me love, but I can't feel it. Can we pause here? And then I know how to work my own tools, of like, because I'm trained in a lot of somatic healing modalities, but I have to then like do either Hakomi or IFS with myself in that moment, to be like, let me open myself up to actually take it in. Can you maybe say it a different way? But I need to be really resourced to ask him that, because if I say it in a demanding way,
Mhm.
like, that's not real, you need to tell me in a different way, right? Like, then of course that'll activate his attachment wounds of feeling controlled. Right? So it's super nuanced. And so I just want to validate what you're saying, that it's
Yeah.
super nuanced, and it really helps to have somebody supporting us to see it and then give us the tools to work through it.
Yeah, and that's such a good point what you're stating, because, and I have this happen still. I mean, this isn't something that's just like gone, but whenever I hear you speaking, I'm hearing someone who's become the observer. And the part that I always let clients know is that secure attachment is something that can be attained. The brain has neuroplasticity. We can become securely attached. It takes time. In the book Attached, they say it takes 4 years. I don't know what that's based off of. It sounds right. I don't know. I do feel like it takes time. But whenever you start to become the observer, you are that's probably more on the realm of someone who's securely attached because you're able to observe what's happening and speak your needs.
Right, exactly. I know. I love to tell people that having secure attachment doesn't mean you don't feel insecure.
Yeah.
It's like it's people think that if you have a secure attachment style that you always feel secure and confident, and it's like that's actually not what defines a secure attachment style. What defines it is the mindfulness piece that you're talking about. Although people who naturally have secure attachment didn't necessarily learn mindfulness. They just got really good attunement from their
Yes.
parents, and that provides us with a ability to be mindful, meaning I'm noticing something inside of me that feels insecure. Let me see what I need. It's that little bit of detachment which is provided by if we had emotionally available caretakers that they asked us, what are you feeling? Let me help me figure out what you need, when you were little. And so they modeled that detachment and that questioning for us. So it's like as adults, if we had that, we know how to do that for ourselves. And if we don't, then that mindful voice can be established, right? Like I'm noticing something in me feels insecure. What do I need? And that kind of like mindful presence, people who have secure attachment naturally might not call that mindfulness, but you as a coach can then teach mindfulness practices to help people establish that, right?
Yes. Yeah. To be able to slow down and bring back the breath and be aware of what's happening. And then similar to what you just stated, the ability to self-soothe. That's another piece of this that is so incredibly important is learning how to self-soothe. Because typically when children grow up in these types of environments, that myself included, that they did not get the ability to understand how to self-soothe. And so as you're on this journey, that's a big piece of this is having that heightened state and having a technique. And it's so, if people are like, what should I do? I can tell you some techniques, but it's really kind of dependent on what you resonate with. Like some people really resonate with tapping, or some people really resonate with deep pressure. Some people really resonate with listening to a meditation. But learning how to calm the nervous system, because then you're able to have clear thinking. Because when you're in that heightened state, your thoughts aren't very clear. So it's hard to state what you need. But whenever
Right.
you come back down, your brain starts to clear and you're like, oh, I really just need you to tell me that you love me and that you want to be with me.
Right.
Um,
Exactly. Right. As opposed to, I like to say, if it's hysterical, it's historical, meaning like we need to self-soothe or be with our inner child, because that's our own wounding that, we have the opportunity to self-regulate and discover our feelings and needs, in that moment. Versus like if it's not hysterical, if we're just having an unpleasant feeling and we're present, we might be able to just say it.
mhm.
But for me, if it's like really outside my window of tolerance, I know if I'm gonna, I teach like to own your experience, so it's like if I'm gonna go into my husband's circle, is what I say, and be like, you don't care about me. Obviously, then instead of doing that, then it's time to self-regulate. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's such a hard experience when you're dating because you can't really rely on that person to help co-regulate or to figure that out in the moment. And
Yeah.
that's what I really love about the work that I do because I genuinely feel like that there's like a gap in the mental health world in dating. And there's a lot of support when people are in relationships and figuring out how to navigate it in relationships. But there's this part that's like when you're trying to find the person you could really, get some really good feedback and be able to find this person before you even get there.
Right.
But it's difficult because you do have to cultivate these skills really co-regulation is like, that's what we all need. Like that's how you heal essentially is through co-regulation. But when you're dating, you can't really do that unless you're doing that with a family member or say friends, which you can. But mostly we seek that from a primary attachment, like a partner.
Right.
Um,
And yeah, you can't really like on the first before you're exclusive with somebody, you can't really, co-regulate because, you have to be healthfully independent before you can be interdependent. So I agree, self-regulation is um very important. And I love how you mentioned that it really there's so many practices to learn how to self-regulate. It really depends on what resonates with the person you're working with. So it sounds like you have a bunch of like a menu of different tools that you teach to learn how to self-regulate. But people know they're self-regulated if they're able to be aware of what they're feeling and needing, right? Because they're in their window of tolerance. So like then they can say, oh, okay, I really just need to know that the person cares about me right now. Like
mhm.
is how you would know that you're self-regulated is that you're aware of what you're feeling and needing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah. I typically say for clients that the thinking becomes more clear.
Hmm.
It's not like just, oh, we've all been there where it's like, I don't know what, you almost feel like you're in a distorted reality in a way. I love that what you said, hysterical is historical. That's great. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't remember where I got it from, but I
that's
still remember.
amazing. And I typically, for anyone who's new or this information is very new, I typically recommend anything that stimulates bilateral stimulation. So walking is a great thing to do. When we're experiencing a big emotion, it's really like just like a jolt of like energy. And so moving your body can be very helpful. Or like taking a shower, like somehow changing the sensations, like from hot to cold. But I typically like a pretty basic thing that I say in general, and I do this myself, is going for a walk.
Right, because like you're engaging both sides of your body. One teacher I worked with, Melissa Tiers, she's integrative hypnosis is her thing. She recommended bilateral stimulation, but just holding something like this is chopstick. But you can even do this on a date under the table, pick something up and just switch it between your two hands.
Yeah.
So like you could do this if people are listening, I'm just taking the chopstick and I'm like switching it between hands and bringing it to the side of my body, like, all the way to the left, all the way to the right. You could do that under the table. You can take something out of your
Mhm.
pocket, assuming that you have pockets or your bag, because women's clothes don't have pockets. What's up with that? But under the table and like, do bilateral stimulation. So I'm just like saying, I'm sure that there's so many different tools that I think both of us teach for self-regulating, and it sounds like you have a really robust toolkit depending on what whether people are more visual or auditory or feeling
Uh-huh.
oriented, or whether they want to or whether they're by themselves. Then if they're feeling dysregulated, not on a date, then they can go for a walk or take a shower or change up their environment. And we want to empower people that it doesn't have to be difficult. There's breathing exercises, there's, tons of nervous system regulation tools, sounding, shaking, there's like
Mhm.
tons of things to do. And um, I've experimented with a lot of them myself. And I think that having a coach or a healer or teacher to work with, to experiment with, is extremely useful.
Yeah, because it is a new skill, and any new skill that we've learned, it's can feel very like I don't need to do, there's like you do it, or whenever I do the support group, it's like I usually check in with people after the group and they're like, well, I did it for a few weeks and it was really great, but then I stopped doing, and so it's just it's new. And so having some level of accountability, and if you can't afford to work with a coach, finding a trusted friend who you guys are both on the same journey and just saying like, hey, similar to working out, but this is a skill that is so is working out, but this is such a like skill that is going to directly impact how you experience relationships.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so let's really go over your, you mentioned a lot of steps that you share with people. So I want to really highlight what you said is important. Um, so far we have that before people even go on a date, being really clear as to the deeper qualities that they're looking for, values and culture and vision and attachment and, how will you know that this person is really right for you? What are you looking for? And being able to identify stories and beliefs and working through those so that you feel like you deserve who you're looking for, you know, to
Mhm.
um to actually partner with that person, that you deserve that. And then really as you visualize that and get into your body with that, asking yourself, who do you need to be? Do you need to be emotionally available to yourself in order to attract that? What skills do I need in order to be emotionally available to myself? Learning how to attune to yourself, learning how to feel your feelings more when you're on a date, and then regulate your nervous system so that you know how to stay in your window of tolerance, so that when you're on a date, you're not just carried away with what you think chemistry is that might be dysregulating. You know how to regulate yourself so that you're aware of what security actually feels like, so that you know that that's what you're looking for, so that then when you find that, you know how to kind of like relax into it and not push it away, which is really not easy because it's about redoing our patterns, which is why it really helps to have that accountability and that feedback while you're going through that process, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything that I missed that you shared about your process that you think is important?
The only thing that comes up, and we've already been talking about this, but I just mention it because it's a funner part whenever we're talking about all this deep stuff, is I like to call it lighthearted dating.
Ooh.
And this is where that's the integration piece where you start to feel this more becoming more integrated. And this is as you're meeting someone, having this lightheartedness, like that's what we all want, right? Like we want to be able to experience this in a lighthearted way and get to meet this brand new person with curiosity, almost like you were an alien that landed on another planet, and being able to stay in yourself and be curious about this other person, relieving that pressure of, is this the one? How am I? What are they going to think of me? And being able to more so embody lightheartedness. And of course, there's normal feelings that are going to happen, but this is the integration piece.
I love that. Yes, I'm glad that you said that because that sounds like it really is how to enjoy the process, how to make it not feel like so much work. Because some of it's gonna feel like work just because what doesn't feel like work is just doing what feels familiar and natural. And, if we have insecure attachment, then that's gonna lead us towards somebody who's not right for us. So it's gonna feel like some work, but we need to balance that out with a sense of lightheartedness and play and
Mhm.
enjoyment, and how do I make this fun, and how do I lighten the mood, and how do I bring a feeling of lightheartedness to it, um
Yeah.
which is easier said than done, but I think like if we don't do that, then what's the point, right? Because like I agree with you that with what you said in the beginning, that like people want relationships to be fun and feel good, and that's why we seek them, is like obviously we want to um have growth and build a life with somebody. And, as you said all the way in the beginning, like the nervous system is like a child, meaning it's fun loving and it's playful and it's feeling oriented. And, it's like we needed to feel good in order to be motivated to do the work.
Yeah. Yeah. And two, like going back to that work question, because that comes up often too, of, oh my gosh, this is, a lifelong thing. I always tell clients, this is naturally how we were made.
Yeah.
So once you start doing it, it is going to become natural, because you're going to get so much dopamine and reward from it. And because this is naturally how we're made, it's going to become, coming back to the lighthearted piece, it's going to become integrated. you're going to start doing it on your own. You're going to start making connections on your own of like,
Right.
oh, okay, that's what and two, that's the beautiful part because really only we can heal ourselves, like knowing what the directions are going to be of what's helpful.
Yeah.
Just having a practitioner, having a coach, or having a therapist, they kind of just provide a framework for how to get there. But once you start doing it, this is really how we are made, is to be attuned to ourselves and to attune to others and to give and receive love.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's how our nervous systems were designed, and they haven't changed that much in the past, whatever, 10,000 years since, like think if we think about it, when human beings evolved in tribes of 150 people, that was naturally secure attachment. We were all attached in a positive way with those people. And that is what human nature is. Our nervous systems have not really evolved past that. So it's like we're looking to be securely attached to a small number of people. That just got repatterned to
Yeah.
our closest friends and family. Um, and unfortunately, like if our family had secure attachment, then or if they didn't, then that's our programming. But it sounds like the tools and processes that you're teaching are how to get back to, how to kind of like, I like to think of healing as wholeness, how to get back to that sense of wholeness, which is how we were designed. And that once we get back there, learning how to really attune to ourselves and be able to self-regulate and be clear thinking and feeling in terms of our feelings and needs and know how to express that in a way that is um lighthearted, like you're saying, then that feels natural. It might take some unnatural,
Mhm.
kind of, it might feel unnatural in terms of like when you first start, but then when it becomes a habit, you realize, oh, wait a minute, this actually feels more natural. I'm tuning into my natural rhythms. I remember when I was, because like I'm continually healing myself. It is a lifelong process, right?
Mhm.
Um, but like in my healing journey, in the Hakomi work, I contacted my inner 2-year-old, and I felt like, oh, that's when my nervous system was really regulated. Like there's a bunch of dysregulation in between there, but it was like, wait a minute, I was really regulated when I was 2. That's why my programming is more disorganized and ambivalent and not anxious, because I it's just kind of like chaotic programming. But like when I was 2, I really felt a lot of attunement, both with my parents and with nature. Because my dad was reading these parenting books and like really following them, and I didn't have enough of a personality to like resist him yet. And so it's just this magical place that I can come back to inside my body where I can feel like that feels familiar because I remember having that. And so it's like I want to validate what you're saying, that when we really come back to it, there's going to be a time in our embodied experience that tells us like this is familiar and we can go back to it and this is actually how we were designed, and then it can feel natural. Uh,
Yeah. And sometimes I tell clients if, because it's really helpful that you have that bodily experience of two. But sometimes people might be like, I don't have that experience. You, it's the brain is really interesting. You could make it up. You could
mhm.
create a memory, like not a memory, but just create a visualization and visualize what it would feel like to feel secure and sit with it, even if just for a minute a day,
Mhm.
and
Exactly.
start to see what that would feel like. Because the brain, like we dream, it's really interesting. We can kind of create things for ourselves, and that's
Yeah.
again to the neuroplasticity piece is that it doesn't have to be um, concrete necessarily if it feels unattainable. Because sometimes people are like, I can't do that. So even just being, and that comes back to that playfulness too, of just you can make something up or even creating something outside of yourself, even can be helpful.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree that like as an NLP practitioner, sometimes when I work with clients and they don't have a memory at all of feeling safe in a relationship, emotionally safe, that sometimes like one of my clients felt had a really strong spiritual practice and she really felt close to the Tibetan monk Thich Nhat Hanh.
Hmm.
And so she would do visualizations, imagining that Thich Nhat Hanh was being emotionally present with her and compassionate towards her feelings. And that felt safe. And then she could take it in and really experience that sense of safety within her body and know what that felt like. So I completely agree. It's just about rewiring such that this feels familiar.
Hmm.
And then, of course, then when we're with somebody on a date, we'll naturally know, okay, does this person feel like they're emotionally present or not? But we only know that if we're being emotionally present with ourselves.
Exactly. And something that comes up often too is because I tell people, listen to your body, but some people are like, well, yeah, but if I don't know, what's the difference between excitement for a person who's emotionally available or excitement for someone who's unemotionally available. That's why doing this kind of work before you get there.
Yeah,
But I also would challenge that, and I think a lot of people do. No, but that's just kind of me where I would kind of bump up against that. But doing this beforehand and understanding what emotionally availability feels like within yourself, you're going to see it in another person.
right. Exactly. And then I mean I think the only other question I have, because I know we've been going for a while here, but I mean, I'm sure I could talk all day. It's just that, people have things they need to get to. But because I agree with you, I think that a lot of times when people really take time to slow down and recognize it, they do know how to tell the difference. A lot of my clients don't know what to do when they sense that someone might not be emotionally available. Like, how do they really tell? Like, oh, this person is not really asking deeper questions. They're not really, when I share a feeling, they're kind of distracting away from it, but maybe they're nervous. How do I tell if they're emotionally available or not? Like, what do I do when I think they're not?
Yeah, if I had a client, and I do have clients who say that, and my belief is that they're not. If they're doing that on a first date, it's highly likely that they're not. If they were just nervous, they could say that. They would say, I'm nervous. I don't know what to say right now. I'm nervous. Um, but if they are giving you all the signs, something that a secure person would do is they would be like, next. And that's something that I work with people on is to learn how we don't want to waste our time anymore, right?
Yeah,
Like, let's
exactly.
just stop wasting our time. And most women, if you ask them about a specific relationship, they would say, you know what, I knew on the first date. I could tell.
Hmm.
And so I would say that that's probably enough information. I
Yeah.
typically, I don't, when I'm working one on one with something, I don't say like next, but I try to help people get there themselves. So they might go on a second date, um, and then get more information. And then it's like, okay, well, how could we make that even sooner? Because you can actually even tell on a profile. You can actually even tell sometimes through the messaging. And
Mhm.
so you kind of want to get quicker and quicker about
Right.
recognizing it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I know that that's something that you can do with people one-on-one when you work with them, of course, or in groups. So, yeah, I mean, I would love to hear about the different ways that you have of supporting people. Then I know you said that you have a support group. I know you said you have a Facebook group, and then I know you do one-on-one work. So, yeah, and you have a free gift. So let's talk about all those options.
Yeah, yeah. So my free gift to the listeners is a 21-day meditation journey. And it's actually a 21-day course too, as well. So it takes you through a process of becoming more secure in love. And so you're on a little step ladder on that 21-day journey to becoming more secure. It's a brief talk and then a 10-minute meditation. And each topic is very different in relation to getting more in tune with yourself and what you're looking for. Yeah, and I work one-on-one with clients virtually and in person. I live in Asheville, North Carolina. And I have a 6-week support group where I help women go through this exact process. It's a very structured group to give women a very clear design for how to implement this in dating. And yeah, I have a Facebook group that's active in a really sweet community of women. I have a book club, and I also am starting to do here locally some singles events for men and women who are doing this type of work to come together.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah,
Where
yeah,
can people find out about that if they're in the Asheville area? Is it on your webpage?
yeah. Yep.
Fun. Yeah, because I know that's a huge question that I get from my single clients too, is like, where do I meet people in person? It's
Yeah, I kept getting that question. So I was like, I'm just gonna start something.
right. Because I mean, I look at online as really just a supplement, and the way to really meet people who share your values is through social networking. But it's like how, that's how I've always gotten into re quality relationships. But
Mhm.
I live in the New York City area, so it's a little easier
Yeah.
to meet people in person because there's so many in-person events going on. Although people say, in New York City, it's like people have, they're meeting so many people that that presents another problem. Um, but most people I talk to are in an area where they're like, I don't know how to meet people in person. So that's an amazing service that you're offering. So yeah, I encourage anybody. I'll put your website under the video on YouTube and in the show notes for the audio podcast as well, so that if anyone is in Asheville, and of course I'll put your other, um, the link to your free gift, um, the 21-day becoming secure in love journey, and then I'll put your website on there so that people can check out your other offerings. And I don't know that I have oh yes, I do have a link to your Facebook link. So I can put that in there too because I want, people to be able to join your group if they resonate with you as well. And, is there a specific special link that people have to join your group? If so, I will post that below.
There's not, yeah, that link that I provided, that's the link that should be.
Perfect. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'll put the link to your Facebook group, to your website, and to your free gift. Your 21-day course below the video and in the show notes because I think that you've just presented such a wonderful framework of going from attracting unavailable people to really learning the tools and practices to become available to yourself and to really look at dating in an embodied way so that you don't have to chase, so that you can allow yourself to follow your guidance and your intuition, rather than just following chemistry and what feels good. Obviously, guidance and intuition has to feel good enough for us to continue too, in that lightheartedness. But it's so hard to tell the difference ourselves, and it's so helpful to have that outside feedback and support to be able to learn how to attune to ourselves.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I just really appreciate you sharing all of your wisdom, and I'm really grateful that I agree that there's kind of a dearth in the dating world. There's like all this great dating advice, and there's a lot of therapists offering support to people in relationship, and of course me, because I'm a coach offering support to people in relationships and dating. But it sounds like you really focus on the dating piece and how to develop secure attachment within yourself and then how to really attract that in a dating partner, which is just so needed. I feel like there's not enough people teaching that. So I really appreciate you sharing all of your wisdom.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I meant to share this in the beginning, but I followed you whenever I was dating and got your newsletters. And so you've always kind of had this wisdom in this area and been sharing what you know in this way. And so I'm grateful for you as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I feel really honored to hear that. And there's just not enough people, in my opinion, teaching all these tools. So,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, it's gosh, if everybody knew this before they got into a relationship, then I think the divorce rate would be much lower and people would feel a lot happier in lasting love. And that's my vision for the world too. So,
Yeah. And then we're also having children that are witnessing this, and then it's just kind of a ripple effect.
yes, exactly. That if you actually develop secure attachment between you and someone else, that then your children can grow up with secure attachment
Mhm.
and then they can pass that down for future generations. And we can live in a world that feels emotionally safe more and more.
The goal.
Yeah, that's a wonderful vision to leave people on, especially in today's world.
Mhm.
And, you know, it's expected that the parents teach that to the kids, as, you know, society doesn't necessarily teach it. And this is a way to take that into our own hearts, as you will. You know, not being easy to do. And I
No.
acknowledge that it's not easy to do for anybody. And it's really a labor of love for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But it's good work.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, I know we're preaching to the choir. This is, you know, our life's work. And so I hope that this has been helpful to everybody listening and watching. And of course, feel free to leave us questions in the comments. I know we've shared a lot of deep principles and you know, they're not necessarily easy. So feel free to you know, if you're especially if you're watching this on YouTube, there's a lot of space for comments. And you know, we'd love to hear your questions. And of course, I encourage you to get Amber's course and join her Facebook group. And so it's just really been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And I hope that everybody has a day that is filled with self-attunement, you know, that we're able to drop in and attune to our feelings and needs and feel regulated so that we can really thrive in all of our interactions. So until next time.